Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and today we are looking at 5 things learned from the Super Rugby Unlocked competition. Just a couple of things about the teams, about the competition itself, and about the current environment of South African rugby. Before we go any further, please do consider subscribing. Bottom right hand corner there, smash the like as well. Jump in the comments, let me know what you think. What did you learn from the competition, and what are some of the takeaways that you've seen from the last couple of weeks of action? Without any further ado, let's get stuck into number 1. So something that I think a lot of people have been getting quite upset about is this whole sort of the Bulls talking about them winning their, fourth Super Rugby title, and that they're, this is a big Super Rugby thing, and that, despite the fact that they were to other teams, that this is a big Super Rugby competition. At the end of the day, it wasn't really, there was, it was not supposed to be counting towards Super Rugby caps and appearances type thing. Obviously, there being no sides from Australia, New Zealand, even Argentina or Japan. So it wasn't really a Super Rugby competition. And look, to be fair, I don't think it was ever supposed to be this, big, this is Super Rugby type thing. I think it was, lots of people call it sort of the COVID Cup. And I think if you take away the sort of the humour side of it, it was in many ways a filler competition to try and, just present the opportunity to play rugby and to try and, finish the Super Rugby competition. But you can never think of it being a Super Rugby competition with the addition of non-Super Rugby franchises in the likes of the GRIQUAS and the PUMAS and even the Cheetahs. So I don't think it's something worth getting sad about, but I think it is quite important that we don't sort of get too caught up in that, it was a Super Rugby competition or whatever. We all know it wasn't. We know what it was. And I think that the more you sort of taper your expectations and understand that this was just a way of getting rugby back on the field within the current environment, just the more you'll start to enjoy it, without having to nitpick every single type of small thing saying, oh, but, because of COVID that this was unfair and this was unfair. As I said, the main thing is just that we are playing rugby and that we are starting to get a bit of idea of how our unions are, where our players are, some potential players, some exciting players, and kind of understand that side of things. And so I think it's very important that we're very clear and that we're very honest with ourselves that we know it wasn't a Super Rugby competition. And I don't think too many people are treating it as such. So this is a bit of an interesting one, the idea that GRIQUAS and the PUMAS cannot compete. And the reason I say this, and it's a story that is something across any sports league anyway, and the whole idea of money talks. And as much as you sit there complaining about the fact that the big unions have lost so many Springboks and stuff like that to COVID, spare a thought for the likes of the GRIQUAS and the PUMAS, who had players leaving their sides mid-season at the end of what would have been the normal season, the contracts coming to an end, and moving to other franchises mid-season. And there's now talk about the Bulls going after Francois Steyn and Junior Pokomela, but the Cheetahs, had the Pro 14 and had that sort of revenue stream. You think of the PUMAS and the GRIQUAS, who have not played competitive rugby in pretty much over a year before this. They have no hopes of ever being able to compete for as long as they, just sit there having all their players poached. And I think what Sorrow needs to do, regardless of how we move forward, is we need to look at a financial restructuring which makes these unions stronger. EP needs to be, look, in terms of management, they need to sort that out. But the likes of the GRIQUAS and the PUMAS, there needs to be structures in place in terms of maybe, linking to certain varsities and creating programs which broaden the talent of rugby so that we can try and regenerate the Currie Cup. The Currie Cup cannot just be which are the top 4 sides are the best at the moment. It really does need to be hopefully an 8-team tournament where we can sort of sit there and go, this is the best of South African rugby, but there is opportunity for a PUMAS, for a GRIQUAS, for an EP, for Falker back in the days to try and actually go and win a title. And there needs to be those sort of that sort of diversity within the funding within the SA Rugby, where SA Rugby needs to look at trying to make the unions more self-sufficient so that a lot more of their funding can go to the other structures. You can't deny that there's an incredible amount of talent within the Eastern Province, for example, within Limpopo, within Mpumalanga. There is talent coming out of there. You look at Dwayne Vermeulen, should be playing for the PUMAS, and he's not the only one. There are a lot of players that are coming from that region, but the standard thing is that they have to go to a Bulls, a Lions, or a Sharks, or a Stormers, or even a Cheetahs to try and make it. And yes, that will always be the case. No matter what league you look at, there will always be those strong unions. But we need to make sure that in a country which produces so many youngsters, so many professional players, we need our unions to be stronger. You know, you look at the Premiership and how many teams there are, and how many sides, and how many good sides there are. It only does more things for SA Rugby to make sure the Pumas and the GRIQUAS can compete and can be a good side and a decent career path. Right, something that's a bit closer to my heart being a Lions supporter is that the Lions are in a transitional phase where they've got a lot of experienced players have left, but they've got a very good batch of youngsters coming through. And they need to back this generation. That is what made them so successful. That they took a core group and said, right, we are going to put not necessarily put all our eggs in one basket, but they pretty much did, to be fair. But say that this is the team that we are backing going forward. And that's why I was a bit frustrated with some of the signings, the likes of Yanni Duplessis. Willem Albers, to a certain degree, I can understand needing a bit more experience. But we need to back this core generation and then add a bit here and there. Because I think there are a lot of talented youngsters coming through the Lions. You know, that Lions under 21 side were arguably the form side of the tournament before losing in the final against the Bulls. Just didn't really pitch up on the day. But they've got so many good players coming through that they really need to go and back this group and get it gelling. And that means that the likes of Stian Pienaar needs to get game time. Manny Russ needs to get game time. You've got to back your Vince Sukas. You've got to back, you know, there are youngsters who are coming through, which I think should deserve game time. The like of Asenate and Klabakanya. You know, I think there's so much more value in him coming through and playing than a Yanni Duplessis, you know. And I just think that needs to be the Lions strategy of go back to what made us successful. And that was taking a bunch of pretty young players and saying, right, you are the core of the team, you are taking this team forward and continuously backing it. And I think that's where they will reap the most rewards. This is in many ways a warning to the rest of the unions. This Bull side will only get better. Jake White has already looked at bringing in the likes of Junior Pocomella and Francois Steyn. He's brought in a lot of good players, and you know he's going to keep doing that. And whether you agree with that or not, the reality is it is a very good Bull side at the moment, and it is a Bull side that is only going to get better. And as a result, you know, the other unions need to look at how can they catch up, and whether it is a case of trying to find a financial injection and bringing players in, whatever it is, you know, I think that the Bulls, rightly so, well, not necessarily rightly so, but have long been underperforming, and they're now doing a lot of structural change within the union, and they're reaping the rewards. And a lot of it is money related. They, you know, they are the richest union, so they can do these types of things. But it's also a very well-run union. You can't really deny that, especially, and we've seen that in the last couple of months. And the other unions need to take note and need to be cognizant of the fact that this Bull side is only going to get stronger. And so they need to start making big movements if they are to try and catch up. And whether that means, you know, looking at a whole restructure of players, player development, stuff like that, the other unions are going to have to start coming to the party very soon, or the Bulls are going to leave them behind. And we want to see 4 teams move into the Pro 16 and be competitive. You know, we don't just want one side. We don't just want the Crusaders who are winning week in, week out, dominating Super Rugby one competition, and while the other teams sort of take it in turns. You want all the teams to be competitive. You don't want a one dominating team. You want at least 4 or 5 unions within this country, you know, where there's not much between them, because it just breeds competition, and competition just breeds a better Springbok side, you know, and there's just so many good advantages there. But I think it's very important to note that for all you can sit there saying that the Bulls got lucky here, the Bulls with this, that side is playing good rugby, and they are only going to get better. They've got so many good players who still haven't maybe settled in yet, and they still have lots of good players to bring in, and I'm sure that they will be looking and bringing in more players as the months go by. Something that I think would have saved a lot of frustration and in hindsight made a lot of sense is that there should have been provisions for bye weekends. For example, this weekend is going to be the first weekend of the Carling Cup. This should have been a bye weekend, and there would have been an opportunity to have try and caught up games. Sharks Stormers would have happened, Lions Bulls or Lions Cheetahs, Lions Pumas or Lions Cheetahs could have happened this weekend. You know, there were a lot of games which were missed out, and there's always this talk about we're going to try and postpone, but at the end of the day, it's not practical to try and play a game Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, in a time where squads are so depleted. You know, if there's no COVID and you've got no issues with that, you can look at doing that. But because of, you know, these games being called off because of COVID, you're now looking at depleted squads who need to try and find the numbers to be able to play these sort of midweek games. It was never going to work. And I think in hindsight, there should have been provisions for bye, even if there were just 2 bye weekends. One at the end of Super Rugby Unlocked, one at the end of the group stage of the Currie Cup, just to try and allow for as many games as possible to be played. It's one thing if over the entire competition, you're looking at 30, 40 games, 2 weren't played. But when you're looking and you're thinking, right, out of 30 possible games, 6 weren't played. We've already had about 4 that haven't been played, It's a big problem. And then that is why the integrity of these competitions are being questioned, because there wasn't the provisions to ever really be able to play these make-up matches. So I think that's something that could have been learned. And if COVID is if in a year's time we're still in a similar situation, leagues need to look at provisions on how this can happen, because we are seeing it being a lot more affected, especially in the South African competition, than it has in other competitions. And there needs to be provisos, or something needs to be done to be able to accommodate this, to ensure that the competition continues to be competitive and it continues to be a genuine competition, and that there can be no questions of the integrity of what is being done itself. So let me know what you think in the comments below. As I said, please do smash like, do consider subscribing as well. We're trying to push to 250, so please do support the channel. Thank you very much for watching previews of all the matches this weekend. Keep it locked on Forever Sports. Cricket returns as well in South Africa, so we're going to be covering that South African England series as well. So much content to come. Make sure you're part of the channel so that you never miss any of it. My name is Stephen Pettit, and I'll chat to you very soon.